Something fundamental has changed in modern Western society. Goals that previous generations reach in their 20s now often happen in the 30s. We usually blame the economy. Some blame younger generations themselves. But what if the real reason is something deeper? What if the way our society understands adulthood is quietly changing? Modern Western society has been steadily delaying adulthood. The key milestones of adult life, starting a career, a serious relationship, family, real independence, have moved significantly later in life, over just a few decades. Not that long ago, it was completely normal to marry, have children, or start building an independent life in your early 20s. These steps were once tied to early adulthood, often soon after turning 18. Today they are postponed, at least until after studies, and very often even later, well into the 30s. Early adulthood is no longer seen as normal, it is increasingly seen as premature. An ambitious young person who wants a responsibility early, build a career, or start a family doesn't come across as someone who knows what they want. Instead, they are quietly suspect. Not seen as a deliberate choice, but as a missed opportunity. Not as someone building a life early, but as someone for whom something went wrong. We didn't abolish adulthood. We simply move it further away, to some undefined point in the future, when the time is supposedly right. So how is this delay actually implemented in practice? Very simply. We park young people in prolonged education, most often at university. Higher education has become mass-based, socially encouraged, even for profiles that don't realistically require academic training. Universities today often function less as places to acquire knowledge, and more as mechanisms for postponing real-life decisions. How many young people do you know? Smart, capable people, who openly admit that when choosing a degree, the main criterion was that it wouldn't be too hard, and that student life would be enjoyable. The goal is simply to have a diploma, not a clear idea of what to actually do with it. Young adults are no longer treated as full adults. They're treated as students, people who are still in progress, still without final responsibility. This is where the key effect appears. Studying creates a false sense of potential. As long as you, more or less, keep up with your studies, everyone says you're doing fine. You're seen as building your future. Real decisions can wait. Real life problems don't need to be solved yet, because you're building potential that will make up for the delay later. So, no worries. This is the academic bubble, an artificial space between childhood and adulthood, where you have freedom, without full responsibility. Student status function as an institutional labor of potential, granted in advance of any real-world proof. Now, to be precise, education itself is not the problem. For some people, the academic path is natural, necessary, and correct. They're personalities who grow through theory, analysis, and long study, and modern society cannot function without them. The problem begins when this path becomes the universal norm, when it is pushed even on those who are not academic types, people who will develop faster through work, responsibility, and practice. For them, prolonged study often doesn't mean growth, it means delay, loss of energy, and the slow erosion of other ambitions. For some, education is a path into adulthood. For many others, it is simply adulthood postponed, packaged as education. Let's be honest, most young people are not truly forced into this system. Quite the opposite. It's comfortable. And that is exactly why it is dangerous. For an 18-year-old, in that moment, it is the easiest decision. You get a social moratorium. No need to make heavy decisions yet. Minimal academic effort is enough for the environment to treat you as someone who is on the right path. As long as you are a student, you are a potential, even before you have proven anything. You are counted among the future elite long before you have carried any real responsibility. Psychologically, it is a very pleasant position to be in. Parents often find this arrangement emotionally easier as well. Their child stays a child a little longer. He stays in a socially protected phase of life. As long as he is studying, everything looks fine, even something to be proud of. Of course, there are young people who sacrifice enormously for their studies. For them, education is not a delay of adulthood. They're not who I'm talking about. But the system also suits companies and institutions. For them, a diploma is a cheap filter. It allows quick selection for cognitive discipline, persistence, and conformity, even where concrete job skills have little to do with academic knowledge. From their perspective, this is rational. Most white-collar jobs do not inherently require a degree to prove you can do the work. They require it to prove that you were disciplined and able to conform to institutions for several years. But companies don't pay the price for this system. Individuals and society do. And finally, maintaining this status quo suits many interests. By parking young people in education, there is little pressure to confront the real challenges of their economic and family development. These problems can simply be postponed. All this short-term comfort doesn't mean society benefits in the long run. Young adults delay entering real life, career, serious relationships, confrontation with the world as it actually is. The years with the most energy, adaptability, and social formation are spent in a protected, intermediate space. Real life begins late, often when the windows for risk, courage, and flexibility are already narrower. Years slip away that should have been used to build the foundation of adult life. In your 20s, the tolerance for mistakes is high, in career, in relationships, in decisions. If you get it wrong, it's not fatal. You have time. In your 30s, the same mistakes are no longer the same. The pressure to achieve something is stronger. Wrong choices become long-term risks. And that is when many realize that education did not help them transition into adulthood. It merely delayed it and made them too comfortable for too long. The question is not whether extended formal education can be useful. The question is for whom, when, and at what cost. For some people, prolonged education enables real growth and development of their full potential. For a large part of the population, however, no matter how much knowledge it adds, its price in time and delay adulthood is simply too high for the actual benefit. Let's not deceive ourselves. The delay of adulthood in today's society is not just one equivalent option among many. Society systematically encourages the postponement and distrusts young people who want to grow up too early. A young person who chooses a different path must actively go against the current, against implicit cultural expectations. This is not mutual protection of young people. It is a choice of values. A choice that privileges comfort and the illusion of potential over real life, risk, and responsibility. And this choice carries real costs for individual and for society as a whole. Not only economic and financial, but personal, social, and demographic. A society that systematically delays adulthood does not protect the young. It takes away their best years for becoming adults. The question is not whether young people will grow up. The question is when and at what price. This was not video against education, nor against youth. It is a reflection on a simple fact. Adulthood does not arrive on its own. That postponement has a cost. And if we want to weigh that cost honestly, we first need to understand what we as a society are actually doing. Because this cost is not paid by individuals alone, but by society as a whole, and by its future.